BREWtally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at Rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show.
People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the second installation of the 500th episode week. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is the returning Patrick Galante, formerly of Ice Nine Kills, currently of Lowist. He also recently dropped a song called Pure Darkness with Del Ave as well. They did a collab with Jackson Rose called Crow Feaster. So even though he is not currently in Ice Nine Kills, he is still staying very busy. Also in Knight Rider / X-Affiance. So dude is still staying busy in light of not being in Ice Nine anymore. But this was another one, and honestly, I'm probably going to say this for every guest. This, as soon as I came up with the idea, this, I knew I had to have Patrick be a part of it. Obviously, given the tenure of just him coming on the show, the conversations we've had, just the realness that he's always shown in some of the things that we discussed. And this episode is no different. Obviously, I think, barring as of when I'm recording this, because I'm trying to get everything done ahead of actually having to put this out and be even more stressed than I am doing all of these. But as of when we're recording this, it's probably about a week before this will drop. But I don't think Patrick has done any other podcasts or any interviews or anything since leaving Ice Nine. So I think a lot of this is going to kind of be the first time most of you are hearing him discuss a lot of this. And honestly, I think it's a really great look into the touring world. I mean, especially at a band like Ice Nine, who are just fucking road dogs. And I think it's more of a more interesting look into sort of what happens when you realize the choices you're making are kind of detrimental to your own well-being, but not understanding that because the decisions you're making you think are the better informed decision. And I know that's kind of vague because I don't want to necessarily spoil the conversation that you're about to get into, but I think when I was listening back to it, that's really what I took away from this episode. Was there were so many things that in Patrick and I's conversations, if you go back and listen to some of them, Patrick was doing things that made a lot of sense from a financial decision, from a well-being perspective, and to learn that a lot of it was the root of a bigger issue that he was not addressing, I think was just really fascinating. And we really kind of delve into that. Like, man, we've kind of touched on these things that later would become the unraveling and the thing that you really needed to address at its core all along. And to me, that's fascinating. And as I was listening back to it, after having done this conversation months ago, I kind of realized I need to maybe reassess and do those things in my own life again and kind of take some inventory and stock of am I doing that? And I don't know, maybe I will find that I am not and that I need to make some better decisions about things. But all that said, this is a long conversation. Let's get into it with Patrick, and I'll talk to you on the other side of it.
To hear us talk about non-alcoholic drinks, man.
Well, so with Coors Edge, without looking at any of it, I wasn't sure because of this is how much of a beer nerd I am. I was like, is it going to be more like Coors Banquet or is it going to be more like Coors Light?
Because of the color?
the color is what made me think more Coors Banquet than anything.
Right, because it's got that tan on it. Yeah, what I've learned about non-alcoholic beer, getting into this world of sobriety is that NA beer, because of the process that they make it, can have up to 0.5% alcohol in it.
Oh, it's 0.5 now. I thought it was 0.2 or 3
Well,
before.
that I guess it may vary on state, but I know in New York State, and just a lot of like that Athletic Brewing Company, which is huge right now. I mean, I think they're like top 14 brewery in the entire world, and they're all NA stuff, but it's contains less than 5% or 0.5% alcohol.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've still even steered away from that. I'm only drinking like 0.0%. So like Heineken makes a 0%, which I guess is alcohol free, is what they call that stuff. There's non-alcoholic and then there's alcohol free. So I've been sticking to the alcohol free stuff.
Yeah, this one says that because like what gets kind of interesting about these at times is like what they do to make them different than their like alcoholic counterparts. So like this one says it was double brewed for refreshing taste, and then also does say that it has less than 0.05 per volume. I know the Athletic Brewing, when I was the last time we did one of these and I wasn't drinking, that was the Athletic Brewing was pretty solid, but the options were very limited because I think it had just come out. So really my options were Heineken NA, which I thought was great, but I'll tell you what, and I'm sure you've experienced this too already. That's essentially the only option you have at a bar. That flavor is so fucking old, so goddamn fast. You're just like over this Heineken flavor. Even though
so you're right, and that is like Heineken does taste exactly like regular Heineken, and I don't think I was ever really a big fan of regular Heineken to begin with. So, here, if my option is drinking an NA Heineken, I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna get through this like I would get through it if it had alcohol in it.
Right.
Like it still made me feel like shit in the morning for some reason.
I think my favorite so far, other than the Athletic, which I saw now they've expanded their, like even today I was like torn, like they had a port, or maybe it was a stout. It was a peanut butter something, I think. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know that I want to crush like a 6-pack of those. Like just drinking a 6-pack of like stouts that aren't that are going to fill me up, but they're not going to do anything for me.
Yeah. Just tastes delicious.
Yeah, but someone got me on the Guinness NAs are actually surprisingly really good.
Yeah, I wish that was a 0.0 like alcohol free. Unfortunately, it's not. I haven't been able to find any real like dark. I mean, honestly, Heineken is the only like alcohol free beer that I've found so far.
Aren't those Peroni or whatever the fuck beer, like the all other ones in glass, aren't those 100% zeros?
Yeah, Peroni might be, actually. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
So while we're on this topic, I guess I didn't necessarily know we were going to get straight into NA talk over here with Pat and John.
We're on a.
I know.
This podcast used to be us drinking together. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it still is to a degree.
Yeah.
So I guess if you don't mind me asking, because I get turned down for a lot of guests because they assume this is all it is and they are sober and all that kind of stuff. And I always like to mention that when someone is sober, I like to talk about the path to sobriety because I have gone through bouts of it myself. I obviously guests have, and it's an important story, I think, for those that maybe kind of balancing one way or the other. So maybe like you, if you're willing to tell the story, might help someone along their whatever they're going through.
Dude, of course. And I've actually had, I've had some encounters and interactions with people that I know here in Buffalo and people that have reached out to me, touring buddies, music buddies that have asked me about, about my journey or about this, endeavor that I found myself on. And, this is coming from somebody who, before this, which is at the time of this recording, I'm just over 6 months sober, alcohol, drugs, everything. Um,
Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I'm at like 190 something days at this point. And that's coming from somebody who prior to this last 6 months, I think 37 days was the longest that I had gone since I was maybe like 16, without drinking. So and 37 days was on the Octane Accelerator tour, with Ice Nine Kills. I did basically that entire tour without drinking, and it was fine. Doing that on tour is kind of uh, its own thing, because you're still living that lifestyle. You're still traveling and sleeping on a bus not well, and you're still, like caught up doing things all day and having late nights and not leaving until early in the morning. And even if you're not drinking, like you still get that like exhaustion and waking up feeling like you didn't sleep and waking up feeling like shit. So like doing a sober tour, it didn't really show me, I guess, any of the real benefits. And at that point I was like, well, if I'm still gonna feel like shit, like I might as well have fun doing it, or that kind of mentality. And it really wasn't until coming into this year, I was having just some real bad mental days and some real bad physical days, and I was having a lot of digestive tract issues, a lot of stuff going on below the belt that I wasn't seeing getting any better. No matter how much I was changing in my diet, no matter who I was seeing, I had a colonoscopy, like I had all this stuff and people like telling me what to do. And it turns out that just like a lot of my issues stemmed from the amount of alcohol I was drinking and the amount of sleep I was getting because of my alcohol consumption and what I was eating because of my alcohol consumption. And it turns out that when you take that like kind of like poison out, your body starts to heal. And after a few months of healing, I it was a pretty easy decision to not start drinking again, because in my head it was kind of you know, when your health is on the line, and like, not that it's life or death, but like when your health is on the line, I think it's a lot easier to make the decision to cut out this one thing so that everything else can be better. Um, so that was a big reason. You know, I didn't stop touring with Ice Nine back in May, like that European tour, the first one that I dropped off of. Like that wasn't because I was you know like because I didn't want to be on the road and drinking and stuff. Like it was because I had to get my shit together, and I was having to get my health back in order, because I was just having so many problems, and I had a separated abdominal wall that was affecting like everything was just like melding together, and I just needed to take a break and get my shit together. And going sober helped all of that.
So, out of curiosity, because I know you've been vegan for what, 6, 7 years at least?
Vegetarian for 8 and vegan for 4.
Okay.
So
Part of me wonders, when you're starting to have some of these other health gut things, were you having them? Was that kind of what led to some of the changing in diet initially, because it was
Yeah.
sort of a chronic thing?
Yeah, for sure. I was basically feeling like I was getting, 8 years ago, before I cut out meat. It felt like I was basically getting food poisoning anytime I would eat like something as simple as a burger or chicken fingers. It was starting to affect me that bad. And it kind of just seemed like I had just like an aversion to animal products, or I was allergic to it, or got bit by the Lone Star tick, or like whatever story people want to tell about how it happens or why it happens. And, for all I know, it could have been because I was abusing alcohol really bad in my 20s as well, So it could have all been stemmed from just, knocking out whatever enzymes, killing off whatever enzymes or bacteria you actually need in your body.
Right.
It just seemed like I didn't have any of that anymore. So I weaned myself off of meat. In about 8 years ago, like took red meat out, and then I took pork out, and then I took chicken out. And it was making me feel better because, I honestly, like on tour and stuff, it's so hard to be sick. It's so hard to, especially like toilet sick. I mean, that's like something you can't, you can throw up out the van window when you're driving. It's really hard to do the other thing. So, like not feeling like I had food poisoning every time I ate meat. That alone just makes you feel like you're making a healthier decision. And even being vegan, there were still times in the past few years when being vegan where I was still having gut issues and still having like this like almost food poisoning like feeling. And I really do connect it all to the amount of alcohol that I was consuming.
So the reason I had asked that is because I feel like it would be a thing where if that was something that you were feeling, you're trying to figure it out. And as much as I hate to say it like this, it's just calling a spade a spade. It's one of those things where you're like, well, it's got to be the food. It can't be the booze.
Yeah, dude. And even if it was, I mean, it was like, I remember making the joke of, well, if I have to cut out booze or meat, I'm just going to cut out meat.
Right.
And like that mentality of like, of this isn't the problem. Like I can keep doing that. I want to keep doing this. So I'm going to, kind of trick myself into thinking that it's okay for me to continue, hurting myself in this way.
Yeah.
I definitely, it's one of those kind of like lying, like I was lying to myself about my issues that I was having,
Well, I was thinking in preparation for knowing that we were going to do this chat, I was thinking about, because I know eventually we'll get to Lowist and stuff like that. But, I remember having asked you initially, I think the last time you came on, or even the time before that, Lowist was a new thing. And some of the stuff that you were writing about lyrically, I was like, fuck, man. Like, this is like you're revealing the truth, but there's a way that you probably are like, well, this is just me expressing something. It's creative writing, da-da-da. And I was going to ask you because it's like, I remember you making the comment that like your mom heard one of the songs and she felt really like upset. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I can look back now and be like, didn't you realize then? But
yeah,
I guess,
dude, it is definitely one of those things like, kind of, like romanticizing, romanticizing an issue, romanticizing like a vice. It's kind of like a little bit of like, I often compare it to like this like main character syndrome where I would be like sitting at a bar by myself because it just like, it felt like a movie in my head. It felt like I was like feeling depressed or feeling these feelings, and like, and I could just see the scene in my head of the guy sitting at the bar drowning his sorrows away, even though he knows that it's bad for him, and even though he knows that it's not helping, and it's just enabling further depression. Like that's, and I'm just like picturing myself as the main character in my sad story, and writing those things, writing Headstone, which is the song that you're referring to, that my mom was like, hey, are you okay? That song was about the fact that when I'm on the road, I was, doing this job that I loved, and alcohol wasn't dictating like how I was spending my time. And when I came home from tour and I had nowhere to live, and I was hopping through Airbnbs and like living in hotels in my own city, the only thing I wanted to do was go out and get drunk every day. So like being home was what was killing me because I didn't know what else to do with myself. I didn't have a space for myself. So I was just constantly bar hopping, and figured like that, in the grand scheme of things, to put it like black and white, is like, it's not the road that was going to kill me. It's being home that was going to kill me. But I wasn't making any changes, you know?
Right. I think the thing that gets, and I just kind of had an epiphany that I feel like, I'm going to say this, and it's, for those that don't know, it's going to sound worse than it actually is, but it's like you chose to not have a place, like a permanent residence, because you're like, I'm just not home enough. It's wasted money, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder, adversely, do you feel like that kind of made you feel more nomadic than you were? Like that you had no place to even for yourself to like go back to?
Yes, absolutely. And again, I think that kind of goes into romanticizing this like road dog that I thought I was. And I thought that my entire personality and my entire existence was just this guy that's on tour 7-8 months out of the year, and like, has no real place. I've been missing birthdays and weddings and funerals and anniversaries with my family and my friends for my entire adult life. And, I chose to not have a home base even in my home because it financially, it just wasn't what I thought was smart. But, and I was like keeping that hard shell, like road dog in me. Like, yeah, I live out of a suitcase even when I'm home. Like, yeah, that's my life. That's who I am. And, it took a little bit. I've going to therapy and talking to other people and realizing what my life has become since like kind of stepping out of that mentality. Man, it helped so much. Like, between like having a place that I wanted to call home, and having my partner there with me, and having like taking the alcohol out of my life, has just made my time at home much more enjoyable. And I don't have that, like, that need to be gone all the time anymore,
I think excuse me. I think in listening to, beer burp, talking to
NA beer burp, yeah.
Yeah.
It's still carbonation.
Yeah, listening to Doc's podcast, especially when he was with you guys, it was really interesting because it's like I knew from talking to you and seeing you as consistently as I did when you were on the road that frequently, that it's like it's got to be a burnout for you. But you're like, whatever, like, if I'm not home sitting around doing fuck all or nothing because we're not touring, like, this is what I wanted. This was the dream. Be on tour, climbing, all this stuff.
Get paid. A lot of, the touring world nowadays, and was so in my case, was that like I was getting paid when, the money is coming when you're touring. So if you're not touring, you wish that you were touring because that was your main income,
Right. But I just remember Doc being like, I was fucking burnt out. Like, I was on the road with Ice 9, tour to tour, no days off. Because if we're on a big tour, we're doing the days off. So we're not losing money just being out there. And even hearing him, and I'm not discrediting how long he was doing it, but it's like he was only doing it for a fraction of what you were. And he was talking about mental health and fatigue and his body wearing down. And it's like, I can only imagine how bad it kind of was for all of you, where it's like, I don't get a break from this.
Bro, I'll tell you what, the tour that Doc, the 3 or 2-ish tours that Doc did with us were, extremely difficult. It was, I think, over 3 months straight, like, with hardly, like, maybe a couple days off in between. We were in Europe for 2 months, dude. Like, And they just did that again earlier this year. The tour that I dropped out of was another 2 straight months in Europe because you're right. Like, you're playing with Metallica. You can't just play once a week like they do, or twice a week. You have to play more shows. And, you know, Doc's experience, like coming in and doing 2 straight months in Europe with us, having a couple days off, and then doing a full US tour. You know, his outlook and his opinion on that time that he spent with us is, I respect that just as much as, you know, the guys that have been doing it for longer than that. But he's been touring for forever anyways, you know, which is why I respect his opinion about it even more, because like, he knows what it's like he has that road dog mentality too. And then give him 3 straight months of Ice Nine Kills touring, and he's like, this is crazy.
I definitely think it makes you realize like how important those things are. And maybe, and I don't know, like something I was kind of going to bring up anyway was like, when you guys had some of the newer people coming in to replace, God damn, you've had so many people, I forget who they were actually replacing.
Yeah. JD and Morrow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to say, like, having some new blood kind of coming in, does that make, I'll just stick to more personally, does that make you more aware of like, shit, if these guys are just coming in and they're dealing with this and they're vocalizing it, am I not being honest with myself and what I'm actually going through?
Yeah, dude, absolutely. I think it's one of those things where you kind of, I guess Stockholm syndrome is a little bit like over the top, like, yeah, but it's that kind of like mentality of, you've been doing this for so long, either, you know, with even the same camp. I mean, like, if I had been hopping around with more than just like, I did Affiance for 6 straight years, and then I did Ice Nine Kills for 6 straight years, you know, like, it's, you kind of get so accustomed to the way things are, even if the way things aren't or isn't ideal or correct or serving you as a person. You just get so comfortable, I guess, with not being comfortable in some cases.
Yeah, I just did a chat with Maddie the other day, and I'm low key like, dude, are you about to like burn yourself the fuck out in the next year between hopping between literally Memphis Mayfire and Amberlin shit? And it's like another Amberlin tour just got announced, and it's like, I'm sure that they're being cognizant of it, but I do worry because I've seen enough people that I know personally that it's like, all right, hop into this thing, even if you're just filling in temporarily. But it's like, those miles add up and that time away adds up if you don't take time for yourself.
Yeah, it certainly does. And, you know, I've definitely had my fair share of, at this point, you know, taking my leave from Ice Nine, I've definitely had those thoughts of like, you know, I don't want this to be the end of my, you know, touring career or my music career at all. And I kind of look at dudes that have been doing it for longer than me or just as long as me that are around the same like age, you know, like your Maddie, stuff like that, and just see that, like, you know, Memphis Mayfire took a little bit of a break back in the day, and they are back and, you know, as strong as ever, playing good shows. And he's with Amberlin, who came back, and like, you know, I often have to remind myself that, like, it's not the end of the road, you know, it's not the end of the world here, but I am just giving myself permission to take some time for myself. And I think a lot of people in this industry, a lot of bands as a whole this year, figured out how to do that, and figured out how to be honest with their fans about canceling tours, canceling festivals, canceling shows, because of just, we're starting to be honest with fans and with the world about how extreme this lifestyle is, and what burnout looks like, and how it affects, you know, all of us.
Yeah. Well, I think, like, in a completely different sense, So I guess I'll back up slightly to give you a little bit of frame of reference. So this past weekend, my wife and some friends and I went up north to a casino. Um, I wasn't sure if anyone was really going to drink because everyone kind of put a good one on when I was working door the night before. So I was like, you're all going to be hungover. No one's going to want to party like my day. And honestly, I've just really not been feeling drinking a whole lot anymore. I'm more into taking edibles or smoking weed. Or in some instances, like I did the other day, just taking some acid and being like, all right, I'm going to like kind of trip a little bit and just be in my own head and kind of be more present than thinking about a million things that may or may not happen, which is a big thing I went to therapy for. And so when doing all that, I kind of kept coming back to the thing as I was like drinking, but I was like, I did a shot and I was like, I don't really want to do this shot. I had a I had a drink that I was walking around with a whiskey Coke that I didn't really want. And sort of was as I'm in the middle of my trip, I was like, this thing's cumbersome. I have to walk with it everywhere and put it on a fucking machine and like do all this stuff. Like
it's a chore.
Yeah. And I just was like thinking to myself, I was like, why do I do this? Like, why do I want to do this anymore? Yeah. But then the other part of it too was, having had foot surgery that put me down for like 2.5 months, 3 months. It's a thing where it's like, my life came to like a fucking halt. Like, it's like, I couldn't walk. I couldn't do shit on my own. I couldn't go anywhere. And it just kind of really made me prioritize like what's important and think about like things that I kind of waste my time on. And I feel like now that I've gone back to the bar, it's like, yeah, we all hang out, but it's like half the time it's like I might have one drink while everyone's doing the rest. And I'm like, I'm gonna go outside and smoke weed. It doesn't make me feel bad. It actually makes me sleep really well. Yeah. And it's just a thing where like I just kind of was thinking about it and I was like, man, we kind of waste a lot of time on things that aren't important, but it becomes this thing I realize where it's like, if I don't do this, this is one of the only avenues where I have a social life to a degree. Like these people and I hang out in these places. So if I remove that, am I alone now? And that's scary.
It's extremely scary. And I know exactly what you mean. I mean, it's being part of, bar restaurant industry, which, like I have a background in as well. I mean, it's very hard to stay in that industry, but kind of be changing your lifestyle around it. I still do events at my bar and I still am, am there, a couple nights a month. And it does, it's not like you can't have fun if you're not drinking. It's not one of those things. It's just, you realize how much shit you put up with when you were drinking, and how dependent you were, and how other people around you, like when you're drinking and everybody else is drinking, you don't realize what's going on. And as a sober person looking in on what, my life was like a year ago, looking in on that, I'm thinking to myself, like, is that who I was? Like, is that how I acted? Was there somebody at the bar looking at me fucking ripping shots and screaming at the end of the bar, thinking the same thing that I'm thinking right now, which is like, get this schmuck out of here. Like, I don't ever think that I was that bad, but like, it's one of those like internal things of, is this how I was wasting my time that I had off? Like, is this how I was like my free time, like the time that I got to myself, not being on tour, starts to feel like I was wasting it a little bit by just the shit that I was doing that didn't matter. I wasn't doing anything of like substance besides the few bars that I would work at, or like the few shifts I would do. Like, that felt good. That felt accomplishing stuff, like making cocktails and stuff like that. Like, that feels good. But besides that, it's like, I felt like I wasted a lot of time that I've been trying to get back,
This might be a weird question. When you made the decision, like, a change has to be made, I need to get sober, was there a worry? Because I assume there has to be, and this is my assumption, so correct me if I'm wrong, I would feel like there is a part of me that worries, can I tour? Can I make a livelihood doing the two things that I make my livelihood at, which is being on the road and touring, and kind of to a degree, and again, I'm not knocking this at all, but like I think people kind of come to you to provide them with some form of entertainment on the road, like on a day off and such. So
Yeah.
realizing that who you are to others may have changed or has to change. And if you can still do it at the level and the capacity, whether literally playing the drums and all that kind of stuff. But I also wonder if like there was a little bit of concession maybe where you're like, do I even need to change my home career of like, I'm not a bar industry person.
Yeah, man, that definitely, I haven't worked behind the bar. I haven't done a shift, in over 6 months, since last year. And, even especially now since being sober, I've turned down any shifts that have been offered to me, or any opportunities to tend bar. And I think that through the years, did feel a lot of pressure to be the guy, to be the life of the party, to be the person entertaining. Because whether it's on tour, whether it's on stage, whether it's on tour, whether it's an off day, or whether I'm home, I always just felt pressure to be that guy. And I was prioritizing, I think, these like quantity of relationships, like quantity of time spent with friends, like how long, like how many nights can I stay at the Pink until 6 o'clock in the morning in a row? Like it was about how many different bars I could go to in one day, and not about like going to see one good buddy and having one drink and having a good interaction and a quality interaction, and then being satisfied with that. And, I feel like when I am surrounded by people and I'm not, the one people are looking to you for entertainment and for a good time. And when I just like, when you're not feeling like that anymore, it's hard to put yourself back out into that world. It's hard to put yourself back into a bar and not be like on the same level as everybody else so that you can entertain everybody else.
Right. I think something I noticed in coming back the last few months, because like I ran out of money. And so like being laid up for 3 months, not working, it's like, Bridget and I planned and did a bunch of shit, and thankfully like podcast, I had sponsorship money and stuff like that. But I was more worried about right where I'm at right now, where it's like I have limitations and so forth. And it was a thing where I was like, I can go work at the bar and at least do that, and that's some quick cash, literally and figuratively. Yeah. But it was a thing, like something we were talking about during my last shift was like one of the bartenders and I were talking about how like, and I know we've sort of talked about it one of the last times, but people, this phrase keeps coming up a lot more now. I feel like that I remember, where it's like people come up to you and be like, are we friends? And it's like, and I had to get to the point where I just was like, look, do we hang out outside of these 4 fucking walls? Do you have my phone number? Do you not only our relationship outside of these walls is only on social media? Like if the answer to any of those is like no, then no, we're not friends. And I'm okay with telling you, no, we're not friends. We're acquaintances at best. And the other side of that I've kind of learned to be more okay with it, because I feel like, and I would wonder if you feel this way too, I have had to let go of some friendships because we've outgrown each other. And it's
not serving you.
And I may not be serving them. Like, I'm not going to put it solely on the other person, but it's like, I've come to the conclusion with some people that it's just, the relationship is ended. Like, there's just nothing really there. All we do is reminisce about old times, which is fine, but we're also not moving forward with whatever we're doing now. And I feel like the hard part about that, and I think the struggle of why it took me so long to feel okay with doing that, was because it felt like the time I invested in that, I didn't want to give that up, because I'm like, man, I got 20 fucking years with this person, and I'm just going to like let it go. But then if I'm being honest with myself, it's like 8 of them were really fucking solid. The last 12 was like kind of holding on at straws.
Yeah.
And like, what is that?
Yeah, dude. I mean, that industry can make a lot of what you call fast friends and what you call like or like those are my
Transactional relationships.
or like those are my 4 a.m. friends. Like, and when my girlfriend moved to Buffalo, and we would go out for dinner, or we would go out for a drink or something. There's a bunch of people that I would be introducing her to, and there'd be a bunch of people that I wouldn't be introducing her to. And then when she's like, "Why aren't you introducing me to that?" And I have to explain, like, I know that person, they are an acquaintance, but there's no need to introduce you to that person because I genuinely don't care about that person. Like, that person's not in my life enough for my girlfriend to meet them.
Can I cut you off for just a second?
Yes.
Because that has gotten me into trouble, with Bridget and past girlfriends, because I feel like they think it's like we're hiding, especially when it's like a female. It's like, well,
of course.
And it's like, I can't tell you to their face, like, yeah, this person doesn't matter to me. But I definitely have those people where it's like, I'll go to shows and it's like, hey, how you doing? Hey, how are you doing? And then they go away and you're like, all right, see you in like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So
it definitely, like, kind of just compartmentalizing and like separating the people in your life that should have priority and should have meaning. There's my core group of friends now, and then there are a whole lot of acquaintances and a whole lot of people that I used to think were my friends, but that was because most of my life was being spent in between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. with these people. And like, I thought that they were my friends, but that's the only time that we would be interacting or doing anything. And it was all centered around being in bars. So if I see any of those people out, like, I'll, it's a cool, hello, how you doing? Everything's great kind of thing. But, I know that separation now. I know like the quality over quantity, and like who I wanted to prioritize as the friends that meant something to me in my life now, like where I'm at now.
Kind of speaking to something a little bit different that probably meant a lot to you that I'd like to pick your brain about a little bit. Your last show.
Yeah.
Buffalo.
Yeah.
I mean,
nice shirt, by the way.
Thank you. It was, yeah. I was wearing I actually wore my Bills beanie outside when I was walking Frank's, but I thought that was going to be a little bit too much inside.
A little overkill.
Yeah, especially in the heated house. I don't need
that.
Right.
But
I mean, like, I feel like, and again, it's not the end of everything. So like, but I feel like since the last time I talked to you, it was right before you played, I was going to call it Highmark Stadium. Is that, I forget what it's called now.
Highmark Stadium.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what it's called now.
Okay. I was going to say, what is it? Used to be New Era Field or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It used to be New Era. Yeah.
But anyway, like, you played that, and then you got to do, I believe the last show was at Riverworks, right?
Yeah. Well, so it was at, it's not Riverworks. Riverworks was the show that we played on Trinity of Terror 1.
That's right.
And then we played Station B at what is it called? Canal Side or in the harbor. I'm totally blanking on what it's called, but it's the newer venue right out on the water.
Okay.
And the Outer Harbor, that's what it is.
Okay. I haven't been there yet. So.
Yeah, it's cool. You got the sunset and the water right behind the stage. It's a cool little place. Yeah, I mean, that was a pretty special and pretty emotional night for me. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the, not that I wasn't allowed to, but we didn't announce that it was my last show because Ice9 didn't want to announce my departure from the band until that music video came out, until this kind of like start fresh type deal, which I understood completely. And we all went into that show knowing that it was my last show, though. So everybody behind the scenes knew that was my final Ice9 Kills show, and the fans knew that it was my only show on that tour that I was going to be doing. But like I said, everybody else knew that it was my final show. So you know, a lot of like the raw emotion on stage, and a lot of me like hugging the guys and you know, hugging Spencer on stage, like I guess like that had meaning to a lot of people, but they didn't really know like how heavy it actually was, you know, being on stage and doing that.
Yeah, I think for me, when you popped up, I was like, I hate that I infer things, but a lot of times I'm also right, which also makes me feel kind of bad. But I was like, it feels like this might be the closing of that chapter. And
Yeah.
then subsequently, obviously, you made the announcement and all that kind of stuff. But I just, because a lot of times I feel like the nice thing about that is, though, and I don't know if you've been able to think this way leading into it or even thought about it post the show, but I would almost say like that's a gift that you knew that it was going to be the last one versus
Dude,
like some other random show in like
oh,
Philadelphia or something. Like nothing against Philly,
abs-
but but like that being like knowing it's the last one and kind of being able to kind of do it on your own terms, I think was
bro,
probably very special.
absolutely. And that was something that I reached out to, you know, I reached out to Spencer about it. I reached out to like our manager and stuff about it and said, "Hey, like I would like, you know, I had told them back in the early summer, like I'm putting in my notice. Like I think it's time that I move on and focus on some other things, but I would really like to do one last tour." And I understood completely that their answer was, well, we just did 2 straight months with Adam. Like, he's locked in, and if you're telling us that you're gonna be moving on, you know, we thank you for everything that you've done for this band, but we're gonna stick with Adam. And that is, like, completely understandable. I am so proud of that dude for stepping up and doing what he did and what he is currently doing. Um, and it was a really, really uh, like class act of him to let me play the Buffalo show, not only to for Adam to let me fill his shoes, you know, for that night, but for the other guys to just believe that without a rehearsal, without any kind of anything, that I could just show up after they've been playing without me, and I could just show up and play the set, which included 2 songs that I had never played live before, and 1 song that was, like, really old that I hadn't played in a couple years. You know, they just had enough faith in me to just show up because I'm a professional, and, you know, and I appreciate their faith in me as a professional to just show up and do the job and play the songs. Um, and, you know, it was really, really nice being able to have that be my final show. As much as I wish I would have had more I guess time and more shows, like to end with like ending with like a one-off kind of just
Right.
like, and not having like, I wasn't at like 100%. I didn't feel like tour like how locked in you get like at the end of a tour. I didn't quite feel that good about my playing, but it was still very special and very thoughtful of the guys to say, you know, let's have him play Buffalo, and that'll be, you know, one last hurrah for us. I'm very, very grateful for that.
I assume you had family there for that.
Yeah. I had a lot of family there. Yeah.
What's the? I mean, I guess I'll backtrack just a little bit because I like to sort of give a little bit of myself and then ask the question. But you know, for me, it was really interesting. Actually, for Bridget and I should say, it was really interesting to see you play Ford Field. Like that's the last time I got to see you play, and it was really interesting because it's like literally saw the whole rise to everything.
Yeah.
Maybe not like playing the 400 cap rooms and such, but I wasn't too far behind that. And it's a thing like I remember just looking over at Bridget and being like, this is fucking insane. Like, this is nuts that like we saw this band second of 4 on like a Treyu like 6 years ago or 5, however long ago that was.
Yeah.
And then everything that's progressed since, all the bands that you've toured with, that you've, you know, taken out, you know, they take you out, whatever. And to see it culminating in a fucking stadium show and seeing like how along every step along the way, like all of you did things to make it feel bigger and important every time. And it was a thing that I kind of had remembered saying to Bridget. I was like, it's insane, like the amount of like joy and like being proud of someone, even though it's like I'm not your longest friend or anything like that, but it's just like I've kind of seen it and it's
Yeah.
crazy. So like I can only imagine like your family, like who has literally been there for the whole journey, like
Yeah.
how it was for them to kind of like close the chapter with you.
Well, first of all, I do feel like you have definitely a right to feel that way, because like you like I said, or like you said, you have been with at least me and Ice Nine for pretty much almost like my entire journey with Ice Nine. So like you got to experience that in real time with me. Like my first podcast with you was uh um where, I mean, what was that? That was after the Atreyu tour, right?
That was after the Atreyu tour,
Was that
headliner
on?
with From Ashes to New opening in Elevation, 800 cap rooms,
You're
roughly.
right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was the March into Madness tour. So
Yep.
that was March of 2008. Yeah, March of 2019. So I had only done 2 tours with Ice Nine Kills prior to that. It was Warped Tour, it was Atreyu, where we met, and then we did our first podcast the next tour. So like, yeah, you've seen that progression in real time with me.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate your kind words, and like you saying that you're, proud of me and proud of what the band did and is doing. It definitely means a lot. And taking that to my family, who have been with me for the past almost 16 years at this point. I started doing this in 2009 when I was a bushy-tailed 18-year-old, fresh out of high school, looking to do exactly what I've done. They I think having their support at that show, and having like my parents who have had my back for the entire time, was super important and super meaningful. And then having the Knight Rider guys came up from Cleveland. They were at the show, standing side stage the whole gig. Like, awesome to have their support. And a lot of like kind of like extended family on like my stepmom's side, a lot of like my like step cousins and uncles and aunts, they all came out. And I still wonder if they might have had an outlook on this, like this was my last show ever. I think that they were kind of seeing it in a point of view of I was throwing in, like, I was laying down the drumsticks. Like I wasn't going to be doing shows anymore. I'm not saying that's the reason why they came out, but it definitely seemed like somewhere in the communication of what this was to me, people got the wrong idea that this was me. This was it. And I had no intention of this being it. This was just, like you said, like the closing of a chapter, and something that was going to allow me to take some time for myself and focus on my health and focus on my relationships at home. And then once I felt ready to get back out there, I would find the opportunity to get back out and keep playing shows and stuff. But yeah, man, it was very, very, not quite full. I mean, full circle in the sense that the first time any of my family ever saw me play a show would have been at home, would have been in Buffalo. And they've always been at the big ones. They were at Affiance's last show. They were, at Knight Riders, like first show in Buffalo. They were at Ice Nine's, every Ice Nine show in Buffalo. They would travel to see Ice Nine. They were with me along the way too. So just knowing that I make people proud. I mean, I guess that is like pride, having pride in that. But I guess at the end of the day, that is something that I have constantly striven for. was to have the validation and to have the, have the pride of the people that I was looking to make proud.
I don't mean to laugh at this.
I thought you were crying.
No. I have. First of all, I have very overactive water ducts for my eyes, and
so do I.
It's very annoying. But I was going to say, is that something that you were able to identify now because of therapy? And therapy usually always goes back to your parents or familial relationships. Because that was something for me, that when I went to therapy and we addressed the thing that I was going for, and then we went a little deeper, and it was all rooted back to how I grew up and, parents and stuff like that. You're like, God damn it, how cliche can I possibly be?
Yeah. Oh no, seeking my parents' approval. But
it's like, as I heard you, and I was like, that seems like something you came to through going through therapy.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we've talked about like my like what got me into music and my parents' experience in musical theater and with traveling and doing the thing that they loved to do. We've talked about that, and I think that is a pretty deep-seated thing for me, is that I know it's not the exact same thing. It's not like Jay Weinberg trying to make his dad proud, who is like, they're on like the same level of career and with music choice and like with lifestyle choice, I guess, with like being a drummer in bands, where my parents were singers and actors doing that kind of thing. But I still, to this day, knowing how supportive they were at the very beginning leads me to want to, make them proud every time, because they get it. And
Right.
And if I wasn't making them proud, I would really feel like I was doing something wrong,
I can't believe I've never thought to ask this. Actually, twofold, because you just brought up something else. Obviously, you did a quick run with Slipknot. Like, is that something, and I don't know how accessible any of those guys are, but I feel like Jay would be, especially since you were both a part of the
SJC, yeah.
Is that something maybe you guys talked about? It's just sort of like this understanding that it all kind of boils down to both of our sets of parents were sort of in this world, more so his dad than your parents, but adjacent enough that they understand it. And there's sort of a little bit of a pressure to, maybe not a pressure, but like that they kind of vicariously get to extend themselves through you. And then the second part of that I just thought of is, what did your parents think about Ice Nine once you were starting to add more theatrics to it? Because like that's their world.
Yeah. Well, so to the Slipknot thing, they were pretty accessible. Not so much that I would be able to have that conversation with Jay, which would be, I would have loved to have that conversation with Jay. I think we really got to spend only a few times together, get our picture taken for SJC, and, him and Joe and I like chatted about hockey for a little bit one time. And their bassist, V-Man, would like do cookouts. So like you kind of got face-to-face interactions with him there. And, the rest of the guys were very much kind of to themselves, and that comes with doing this for so long, is like, what's good for you. And, a lot of those guys just kept to themselves. They had their family with them. They would just be playing their instruments. The people that we talked to the most actually was their crew. Same with like the Metallica stuff. Like those are the people that you see the most. So those are the people that you actually get to have like conversations with more often than not. But that is a conversation that I would have loved to have with Jay. And would love to still have that conversation with Jay. You could have us, if you ever get him, you have us on as a duo here.
when I get hired by SJC to be their official podcast guy, I'll pitch that as my first episode.
Yeah. And to the thing about our parents, like I think that there is kind of, you know, good pressure, like I don't think I ever felt like the need to, uh, the need to do this job because it's what they expected me to do, or they wanted to live vicarious through me, so so I had to keep doing this or anything like that. I never felt that kind of pressure, but the pressure that I think I put probably more on myself in that aspect was kind of, you know, they gave so much up for me to be able to do this. When I was struggling at the beginning of the Affiance days, and when Affiance was struggling, like, my mom was there to buy us our first tour van, and my mom was there to give me rent money when I couldn't afford it anymore, and my dad was there to give me rent money when I couldn't afford it anymore. Like, they did all of this supporting of me and had my back the entire time that, when we got to this point of Ice Nine Kills, and me actually starting to see some success, and I just wanted to give that back to them. And then as the show got to be more involved in theatric, like, all I wanted to do was bring my parents to shows and have them see, like, look at what we're doing, and like, I had input in, like, that was my idea, or like, I had input in that. And like, do you want to come see backstage? Like, do you want to come see, like, behind the scenes of how this is working and stuff? Because it's just something that I just wanted to share with them, as as them. They get it, and they've supported me up until this point, and I'm at a point now where I'm like, I'm so proud of what I'm doing, and I hope that you're proud of the fact that I'm proud, and I just want to, like, include you in what we're doing, because I know you would appreciate it, and all that.
Yeah, I definitely. To me, I just, like I said, I never thought until you like brought back the last time we talked and kind of explaining their past in the industry of sorts of entertainment, that it'd be a thing where it's like, oh, I wonder if, like, at some point they're like, this is so cool. You got, like, actors, like, especially the stadium tour, where it's like, I remember looking, because it's like you're in the round, and I remember, you see all the texts and everyone getting ready, and you were off to our left from where we were sitting. And I remember seeing someone run up the stairs when rainy day was starting. I was like, oh shit, someone's literally, and I was like, oh no, never mind. These are, because I was so used to there being essentially one person.
Yeah. And
Or two
yeah.
at most. So
and,
to see, like,
now there's
4 or
four.
5, yeah, I was like, oh my God, someone's rushing the stage. Like, this is about to be nuts. And I'm like, oh no, this is a part of the show.
And people are like, oh, there's somebody rushing the stage with a chainsaw? Like,
Yeah.
I honestly, to this day, wish that there would have been some way for my father to come and direct and, like, produce the show for Ice Nine. Like all this stuff that like Lane and Tony and Mike and Amanda were doing, their choreography, their ideas, their planning, their all that stuff. Like, that's stuff that my dad did for stage shows, like producing and directing those things. And I would have loved to just have him in just like a pre-production session to kind of direct our actors and, like, really give them a sense of just that next level of, like, professionalism. I so wanted that it obviously never worked out. But that is still something that I just, like, I wish I could have had, like, Ice Nine Kills on tour directed by Michael J. Galante. It would have been so fucking cool.
On the handbill that gets passed out every
Yeah, dude, like, it would have been so cool.
Well, I mean, maybe that's something down the road you could do, like, whenever there's a video for someone, whether Knight Rider or Lowist or maybe something else, and we'll get to this in a second, but seems like, there's opportunities to do a music video and maybe have him be part of, like, the creative side of that.
Yeah, I absolutely think that could be, that could work now.
So I gotta ask, because I mean, Lowist essentially is your solo thing of sorts, but
yes,
again, correct me if I'm wrong, was kind of became and morphed into something between you and Ricky, really. So what's going on with Lowist now?
So yeah, it definitely began with, it began with me and Ricky because we were spending so much time together, and we work really, really well together in a creative sense, as well as just being like friends. Like we work really well together at producing, songwriting, stuff like that. And because of his extensive knowledge in songwriting, knowledge that I didn't have, like instrument abilities that I didn't have, I was really, really looking to do a solo project that I could showcase my like my vocals, and I just needed someone to help me write and record the music. And Ricky was that guy. So that kind of turned into the partnership of, and I say it all the time, is like, he's the Phineas to my Billie Eilish. Like, the Lowist is me, just like Billie Eilish is Billie Eilish, but Phineas is there doing, a lot of the heavy lifting in the background, songwriting, right, song creation and stuff like that. So that's what Ricky has been to me and to Lowist. And with him being so busy this year with Ice Nine Kills stuff, and me kind of just being at home exploring other ways to live my life at home, I've been writing and collaborating with other people still under Lowist, but there's going to be Lowist songs that come out here in the future that Ricky had nothing to do with. And that's not saying that me and Ricky aren't going to work together again. I can't wait to work with Ricky again. I already have ideas that I want him to be the producer for. But I've spent a lot of time networking and a lot of time picking people's brains and a lot of time making friends with creators on Instagram and on TikTok and stuff like that, that I think, the next Lowist song that comes out, which will be before the end of the year, is a song that I did with a guitarist named Logan. He goes by the name Dal Av. He does a lot of work. With this guy named Jackson Rose, who's actually the drum tech for Ice Nine Kills, Lane. It's his brother. There's like a whole connection there. But I saw these dudes collaborating, and I had written this song on a computer, all digital instruments. And I saw this dude playing guitar, and I was like, this song would be perfect for him to turn into a real fucking song. So I just hit him up and said, hey, I really want to work with you. Like, here's a song that I've been working on that I think you could take to the next level. Would you want to write the instruments for it? I'll do the vocals. We'll produce it together. We'll put it out as a collaboration. And he was all about it. So that'll be the next song that comes out, hopefully before the end of the year. And then I've got other stuff down the pipeline where I'm, just collaborating with other people, and just making cool music. Like Dominic from Knight Rider and I are going to do this like Bad Omens acoustic cover, and we might do some more acoustic songs, and that'll still be under the name Lowist because it's just whatever I want to do, on the side. I mean, it's not even like really like a side thing anymore. Like that's just what I want to do, is I would just want to create and collaborate with as many people as possible and just create cool shit.
Well, I was going to say, cause like, you posted, I think today, I've been like fighting a cold the last like 3 days. So like my days have just been work, sleeping, and then waking up and going to work. Yeah. So every day feels like the same to me. I was going to say, I think you posted today, as we're recording, that you did something, and I don't know how to pronounce this dude's name. So I'm going to ask you straight from the source. It's Nick, but is it still B or is it Stilb? Or like
Stilb. Okay. Stilb, yeah, Nick Stilb. Okay. Nick Stilb has been my best friend here in Buffalo for a number of years now. We've worked in service industry together. We hung out all the time, and it wasn't until recently that we actually started making music together. We both like had this love for music, but never that just, kind of going all the way back to the beginning of our conversation. Our relationship wasn't music based. Our relationship was
bar business.
Alcohol. Yeah, was bar based. So he's about 30 days ahead of me with sobriety. So we've kind of been doing this together, and getting healthy together, and taking sobriety together. And that, I think, helped us kind of explore new, realms of our friendship, which got us into music finally. We played a show together at my bar. We did an acoustic show during this acoustic series that I booked. We performed for the first time together in front of all of our family and friends, and it went over really, really well. And we're doing another one in December. And that's just like a fun thing where, you just get to make music with one of your best friends. And it's very different than anything else that I've done. It's not metal inspired. It's not like it's poppy, acoustic, cover songs, like folky original songs and stuff that really just showcase our two different voices together, where he's a little more
country and you're a little more rock and roll.
Yeah, dude, exactly, man. Like he's a little more soft spoken and like soft singing, and I'm like, I have to be as loud as possible to get anyone to hear me. So like the dichotomy of our voices together, and like what songs we choose to cover. Like we did that show, and I chose a Lowist song to turn acoustic. I chose a Beartooth song to go acoustic. I did a Circus Survive song, and he had some of his originals, and then like did a Good Old War song, and we did like a Goo Goo Dolls song. And it was like this really awesome range of like really exploring what we could do together. So that's just another cool collaboration that I'm just going to keep rolling with. And I think that that's just such an important way to do things at this moment in time, with technology the way it is, with social media the way it is, with the music business the way it is that I just want to have fun and collaborate with as many talented, smart, cool people as possible.
Well, I almost feel like it turns into this thing where a lot of people, from my personal experiences, I don't want to just generalize like that, but typically I feel like when people go down more of a sober path, it's like, I can't hang around these people. I can't do it. It becomes almost like the thing, like a negative, like I can't do these things. I can't be here. I can't be around these people. And it's like, I could definitely see maybe there being trepidation with, like you said, Nick, you only know from, what is it? Lucky something, Lucky Bar?
Lucky Day. Yeah. He's he's the general manager at Lucky Day now. Yeah.
So it's a thing where it would be a thing to me where I would almost be like, oh, I would on both of your sides, where it's like, I'm too new into my sobriety and I know how you were, or that we used to be. So like, I would love to do something with you, but I feel like for the sake of my own health, it's just not healthy for us to do this currently. So to me, I love hearing almost the exact opposite happen, where it's like you found a different side of yourselves, going back to what we were saying about knowing when, you cut someone off because it's just the return of investment of the friendship isn't there anymore. And that didn't happen. And that you're kind of going more into like doing events at the bar, and like maybe working at the bar in the traditional sense that it was for you doesn't work for you currently, but you can still do other things and still be, a participant of the bar that you co-own.
Yeah. When I was like mentioning that I, was kind of prioritizing and reprioritizing the relationships that I had in my life, like Nick was at that top of the list of people that I, oftentimes, saying that dude is my best friend. And then I would go on tour and we would talk, once every couple weeks, or like check in once every couple weeks. It wasn't like it is now that I kind of refocus and reprioritize and talk to this guy every day. It's like one of those relationships where I can't believe that our relationship was as, as kind of like just, well, but just like it was what it was, and it was a friendship, and we called each other our best friends, and we would get together and either work together or just go out and like get dinner, get lunch, which meant like, depending on what time of the day it was, it meant fucking drinking a whole lot. And that was what our relationship was. And then when you get down to like, okay, like he's sober now, I'm getting sober now, like reprioritizing who is important in your life. And like, that is a relationship that I need to improve upon, you know, instead of just cutting it off and being like, well, you know, guess the fun's over. Like we kind of just like had each other's backs even harder now. So it's very nice.
I feel like that speaks volumes to both of you individually, but I think more so as a collective where, and that's the thing that like as being the person who is usually the one reaching out to people and kind of keeping a relationship going in some way, shape, or form, the idea of like, okay, if I stop, does this end? And then like, how sad is that to me? That it's like hearing that was not the case, I think is like almost makes you feel like it's like, oh, you are one of the good ones. Like I have to keep you around. Cause like, even in this, you know, to use a term that Maddie was using the other day quite a bit, but like this season of my life, you know, It's a different season for me now. And it would be very easy, I'm sure, for a lot of people to be like, oh, Pat's no fun no more. Bye. And it'd be like, that's fair. Like, that's fair. And you whatever. But it also, like I said, I think when those things happen and people have an easier out to not keep up with you for whatever reason, and people choose to, it's like, those are the ones that you got to keep around.
Yeah. There's definitely like a, you know, there's a deciding factor on both sides. It's, you know, it's if neither of us make the attempt to remain in contact or remain friends, then like obviously that wasn't a very real or meaningful relationship. And you know, I'm still, you know, all the people in my life that are acquaintances or were old friends and stuff, I don't think I have any kind of bad relationship or bitterness or anything towards anyone. And I don't think anybody has that towards me either. I do think, you know, people will just see me now and just be like, oh dude, it's been a long time. What's been going on? And when I say, oh, you know, I've been taking a break from touring and, you know, I've been sober, you know, I'm 100 and something days sober. Their reaction is always, oh dude, that's amazing. Good for you. You look great. It's great to see you. And that's enough for me, you know, with those relationships. You know, it's not somebody being like, oh, you fucking pussy. Like I haven't had any like asshole come up to me and be like, well, you don't drink anymore. Like, and try to like pressure me into shit like that. Like I haven't had that at all. And that helps me. That also helps me think that like, even those friends that I had, even those acquaintances that I had, those late night friends that I had, still like to this day, just like want what's best for me, you know, right. Which is, you know, I appreciate that very much, that there's no like negativity towards me bettering myself from anyone.
Kind of switching gears a little bit to Night Rider. Obviously you announced a little tour, which after talking with Bridget, unfortunately with our flight leaving from here in Grand Rapids and us very much similar to Buffalo, not knowing what day in and day out weather is going to be like.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't want to, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to make it because we don't want to potentially get stuck going to or from and miss our flight to Vegas. So
completely understand. Yeah, that's a Detroit and a Chicago show for us.
Yeah.
Basically, we're playing a hometown show December 6th, and this band, which is Cleveland, and then which that band Engrave is direct support for us on that show, and then we basically did like a little show swap. So then they're having us be direct support for their hometown show, and then you know, we're going to be out that way. A booking or a promoter in Chicago, you know, we were in contact with, said, you know, you know, come play a show in Chicago. We were going to do one more show in Indianapolis, but I had some conflicts with travel as well. I didn't want to miss my next travel thing by playing the show in Indianapolis. So we had to just stick with the Chicago show, but an Indianapolis show and some more Midwest stuff should be should be coming next year as well. We're going to be playing some shows in the new year as well.
I was going to say that would seem like the logical idea is that Knight Rider is now going to take more priority, and then presumably recording, or are we just looking to do more?
So at the time that we are recording this, Knight Rider has a bunch of songs ready to be, either worked on more or completed. We filmed a music video for a new song 2 Sundays ago in Ohio. That new song will be coming out in November. And there should just be more singles coming out. We're kind of taking that new school approach to releasing songs and releasing shorter catalogs of songs at a time. And we're just going to be writing our butts off, and we have a lot of songs ready to go. It's kind of, this writing process with Knight Rider is a little different than anything that I've ever been a part of or anything that these guys have ever done, where it's like Dennis and our producer, Danny, they are the building blocks of everything. So they get together, they start writing songs. And then as the songs kind of build and progress, that's when I get involved there. That's when, Dominic and Brett kind of get involved and get their hands into the mix. Like, unless it's something that I bring to them that I like, hey, I wrote a song, do with it what you want. It's more of this stuff where they're just getting this Dropbox folder filled with ideas. Like, here's a skeleton, here is just a chorus idea, here's a full song with no vocals, here's, blah, blah, blah. Like, and we're kind of free to just go in and pick from it and work on what we want and give whatever ideas we want. And at the end of the day, Dennis and Danny are going to choose what's best and what they want to work on. And that's kind of how the progression has been going. But the new song that's coming out in November is possibly my favorite Knight Rider song that's ever been written. The drums, I had a really, really fun time programming and then learning what I programmed. Like, a really cool time doing that. I think like it really showcases like each one of our, like styles. I think like drumming wise, this new song is like very much my style right now of how I'm writing and how I'm playing drums. And Dennis sounds amazing on the track, of course. So I'd say coming to the new year, there's going to be more music, more new music, more shows being played, and definitely priority. Knight Rider kind of jumped up the line in priority. I don't know how much touring or what shows will be being played, but I know that I want to really put a lot of work into what Knight Rider is going to be doing here.
I feel like there's got to be something, as we're sort of talking about relationships sort of ending, figuring out where you are with things yourself and everything. I feel like it's probably got to be good to kind of reconnect with those guys and do something new, but it's familiar probably to you all as well.
I mean, again, reprioritizing the important relationships in your life, like those guys and their friendship, as well as their talent and professionalism and everything. Like, I took a lot of that, I think, for granted in the past few years, where I had like these dudes that I spent my entire, like, going from a teenager into an adult, like my formative years I spent with these guys. Like, I was 18, Dennis was in his early mid 20s when I first met him, and now we're both in our 30s, and it's like I was a kid, man. I was a kid. I was a kid. He was in his 20s, and I thought he was a full-blown fucking adult. Like, I like that dude was my fucking mentor, and now I see that we're both in our 30s, and I was like, dude, when I was your age, like back when I was your age, when I first met you, I was being a little piece of shit. Like, I just couldn't believe, like, I've known these dudes for so long, and our relationship has so many years behind it. And through all this time with Ice Nine, and kind of getting back into the world of Knight Rider just reminded me that, like, man, these dudes, I'll always have this connection with these guys, and to not make music with these guys, it would be stupid.
I think something that was also really interesting to see you have a hand in somewhat recently. It feels like you've just been really spreading yourself around in the Buffalo scene again, helping Runkle from New Drummer Who Dies
dude.
Today.
So yeah, man. I mean, and I've known John since I was fucking 16 years old, man. We played shows when we were teenagers in Buffalo in different bands. I mean, I looked up to that dude when I was a kid because he was playing in deathcore, death metal bands, like really fast double kick, really consistent. Like, dude was a fucking machine. And at the time, I was like playing drums in like this weird experimental hardcore band where I was just using like 2 drums and 1 cymbal and just like playing funny breakdowns. And this dude was like a technical death metal drummer. And I was like, man, I'm never going to be as good as this guy. And in 2009, I got the Affiance gig, and he had gotten an It Dies Today gig. That was his first tour with It Dies Today, was in 2009. We were both coming out of high school. He got a gig with like an established band and was touring with this established band that I thought was like, and It Dies Today was one of my favorite bands too. So I was like, so just like jealous, but proud of his opportunity, even though like I was going to do my own thing too. And it's all just like full circle here. He gets an endorsement from SJC, and It Dies Today is putting out a new song, and I have the SJC kit here that I've been recording content on, but he doesn't get his new kit for another couple months. So he hit me up just about like whether he could film a playthrough on my SJC kit. And I was like, dude, I'll do you one better. I'll film it. Like, I want to practice. Like, I want to practice recording my drums, and I want to practice like doing the editing and filming and stuff. So I did that for him. And that was a few months ago. And like, I almost feel bad because now I've spent so much time locked away in my studio perfecting like my like stuff that like I gave him. Like, I did that for him like when I still
shit.
yeah, like I just like I look at that video that I made for him, and I'm like, yeah, this is like quality content, but like I'm starting to create and put out even better content now. So I would love to do more with John, and film and record more things for John, because I think that his next adventure with It Dies Today making like pretty much a comeback, and him being the new drummer and like playing all these shows and festivals, and I think that working with him and getting him some good content is a good relationship.
I feel like I would be slightly remiss to not talk about the Pink.
Yeah, man, that was when like a friend or a family member dies overnight, and you wake up in the morning and your phone blew up overnight, but it was on silent, and you wake up to all these texts. That's what I thought happened when I woke up that morning.
So you didn't even know until way after.
I was out of town. I was in Massachusetts. It was was it Easter?
Yeah, I think so, because I think I was with family, and we were with
Easter
family,
weekend.
and I said something to Bridget, and I was like, I think the Pink burned down. And she was like, what? And I go, well, I'm seeing people, like, because I follow a slew of different
like
Buffalo
the
people
news stories.
Yeah. And then I started seeing it on Twitter and so forth. And then went to Instagram, and then obviously more people were tagging it and all that. And it was it's so weird. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was going to say it was so weird because like I had to explain to like family why I was bummed out. And I'm like, so a bar is a bar in Buffalo, New York. And I'm like, that's where Bridget and I went. Like if the Elmere in Atlanta burned down, I'd probably be more sad because I've spent way more time in that bar and know the people there more, like they know us. But it's a thing where I was like, I've met so many fucking people in that bar at the Pink. Like a dude literally who was a guest on this podcast because we were drinking and shooting like shots and stuff. And then I found out like he was in a band and he like does the gimme discos all over the fucking world. And then I had him on and it's like, this happened because of us going to the Pink.
Yeah, man, it was Easter weekend. I was in Massachusetts at my girlfriend's parents' house, and I woke up in the morning and my heart dropped because I thought that it was going to be that a friend died. And when I realized that it was just an establishment on fire, you know, obviously I felt a little bit better about like not losing somebody that meant something to me or anything like that. But you know, the burning down of that building, thank God no one was in it. I immediately reached out to Nick, who we've been talking about, who was one of the managers at the Pink. And you know, that's a place that I was a regular at. That's a place that I was a bartender at. And that place meant a lot to a lot of people. And, you know, I have some great memories from there and I have some shitty memories from there. I have a lot of like, it's a weird feeling to be sober now and look back on what like my good times were. You know, it's almost like, man, like, yeah, those times were really fun, but, you know, there's some shit that I'm not very proud of about times there. And, you know, kind of explaining that, like you explaining, like, yeah, it's a bar in Buffalo that I met a lot of cool people at and had good times at. Like me explaining that to, you know, my family and my girlfriend's family, like, yeah, there's a lot of shit that I wasn't proud of that went on there, but that place did hold sentimental value, not only to myself, but to a lot of people in that community.
Yep.
To a lot of old timers that was the only place they could go. They're the only place that some people were welcome in. And you know, it very much hurt to lose that place, but Buffalo and its people are a very resilient people. And you know, there was tons of fundraisers, tons of nights dedicated to the Pink, and all of those bartenders like were welcomed into other bars with open arms. And you know, I'm proud of how they recovered, I guess.
Yeah, I think that was something that was really interesting to me, not having it be something that was like mine that I got to experience like for as long as you or literally anyone that lives in that area. But I think like, oh God, this might actually make me cry. I think the thing that got me was seeing literally the droves and droves of people coming out, and not to just see the spectacle, but they were there to almost pay respects. And
yeah,
you know,
it was a funeral. It was a funeral.
Yeah, it was like a Viking funeral, essentially.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that got me too, and like I hit up a few people that I knew were there. I was like, "Get me a piece of the brick or something."
Yeah.
And like no one responded, and I was like, "Damn it." But it's a thing where like to see, like you said, like it felt so indicative of that pocket of Buffalo, where it's like it had people from all walks of life. Like you could go to different bars across the street, next to it, whatever. And like, you know, I know like when we would always go to Mulligan's, it's like there would be times where people like there would be people in Mulligan's literally right next door to the Pink, and there would be people like, "Oh, I don't go to the Pink." And it's like, no, you don't go to this bar that's literally right next. Like, why?
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to just, like I said, see the various demographics of people, new, old, young, whatever, showing up and paying respects. And it was a thing where, like, to me, I feel like you can talk about a place and like it's one of those where it's like, you know, they could build new, but like it'll never be the same. And
right.
like,
I mean, that place had been there. That place had been there for so long. I mean, that was such an old building, and the amount of the amount of iterations of the Pink that there were, you know, that my parents went to, and like it really did span so many generations, as from a bowling alley to what it was now. You know, and a lot of people, you know, a lot of people, I mean, a lot of people just had memories there that is just one of those, like, I can't believe that place is gone. I don't think I was ever going to spend as much time as I used to spend there. You know, like
Right.
I was never going to be a regular at the Pink again. But like, you know, it's weird. Just like it's weird not having a person there anymore. Like your memories of that person are still around, but it's oftentimes you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm never going to see that guy again. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, connecting it, there's a lot of people from the Pink that I knew that I considered friends that had passed away. And like the Pink was the only reason why I ever would have played pool with that guy or met that guy or had a drink with that guy. And then learning that that guy had died was like, I can't believe I'm never going to play pool with that guy again at the Pink. Like, I can't believe that's never going to happen again. And now it's like, I can't believe I'm never going to play pool at the Pink ever again.
Yeah, I think someone posted this and I kind of laughed and I was like, damn, because someone goes, "Is the grill salvageable?" Because that thing has probably got like a layer of seasoning on it that you'll never
Oh
be able
yeah,
to
dude.
recreate.
No, you will never be able to recreate that.
And I think that was the bigger bummer too, was I was like, I should have got one the last time I went.
Yeah.
I still
Yeah,
don't know
man.
how. I still don't know how the cook ever. And I don't think. I mean, I'm sure it's just like any kitchen job I've ever had, where you get to a point where it's just internal memory of like, yep, it's done now. But
I
it's
will
like
tell you,
you can't
I will
fucking see.
no, but I will tell you exactly what it is, because I was the only vegan to ever cook steaks there, and all it was time. I always had the heat set, the same heat every time. It was just, yeah, I salt, pepper, Worcestershire sauce, and usually the average time would be 5 minutes on one side, flip it, 5 minutes on the other side. And then you put the peppers, onions, and cheese on with about 3 minutes to go. And if that would be like the perfect medium rare steak at the Pink. And if somebody wanted it longer, like I would have like a little post-it note saying what time I put stuff on the grill, and I would just be checking my phone and be like, okay, so I got to flip this. Like it was all just like clockwork in my head. And I made a pretty, I never even ate my own fucking steak, but
Yeah, I think like that was the thing that's such a bummer because like Bridget and I, when we travel, we eat places. Like it's like, oh, we
yeah,
got to hit up this place. So it's like there was that thing. There was, I forget what the Jim's, is that what that is? Like down the
yeah,
up the road.
Jim's Steakout, that like the
Yeah.
fast food, late night drunk food. I mean, that's,
And so I'd always go get a stinger there usually because that was the only place open late at night to get one. And it's
yep.
like I know you can get stingers other place, but it's like I feel like that's a Buffalo thing.
Yeah, Stinger is definitely a Buffalo thing. You go elsewhere and say not even just a Stinger, but like a chicken finger sub. You people don't do that anywhere besides Buffalo. And the Beer Keep, actually, when we first
Vegan one.
yeah, the vegan Stinger was that was your boy's idea for sure. And man, it's good.
I kind of start wrapping up so I don't keep you too much longer.
Yeah, you're good, man.
There's a football game on too.
Yeah.
the with the Beer Keep, you know, you've been doing it for a while. Obviously, we've talked about how you've kind of taken a step back a little bit for obvious reasons of what we've talked about. But how has that process been? You know, with because you know, I commented the other day. You posted like where the store used to be.
Yeah.
Now it's like a little, you know, like a little hangout entertainment area of like pool tables, dartboards,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. How has been running the bar been for you over the last little bit?
Well, so it's been cool because being home for more, you know, being home the past almost like year at this point, you know, has given me more of an opportunity to have more involvement in the day-to-day runnings of the bar. We luckily have a really good crew. Like we have a solid, like a solid team that doesn't need much micromanaging anymore. You know, the bar basically runs itself, which is like a really great place to be at. But I'm in there, you know, I'm in there at least once a week, early morning, doing maintenance, just checking on air filters, checking on our compressors and like dry storage and stuff, and just making sure that everything is organized, clean, and in working condition. Any problems that like any of my staff have, like when it comes to that kind of stuff, they feel comfortable coming to me and saying, hey, this broke, or hey, can you come take a look at this, or hey, is there any way that we could make our lives easier by doing XYZ here? And that's kind of a fun role to be in, because I am a bit of a handyman myself, and I like being able to use that skill because I'm not, because I'm not bartending, and I'm not, using my people skills for the bar anymore. I like to still be able to use, the other skills that I have, which is fixing shit. So it's been nice to be able to do that. And, I'm still at our meetings. I still, I'm talking with our chef about food programs and like menu changes and new ideas. And, there's always like a collaborative effort going on, behind the scenes, but it's nice to not have to be front and center and like, working the shifts and being like the working owner, because, there was a time when we first opened, the first couple of years, where, in order to save a few bucks, one of the owners would work a couple shifts, and, it was like free labor basically, because we were just doing it because it's our bar. And, we'd always be there to help out. We'd always be there to jump behind the bar if it got busy and stuff like that. And, we've gotten to a point where our team can handle themselves, and all they need from me is to be, the guy that they come to when something needs fixing or something goes wrong, or we need to figure out how to get a pool table in here, and we need to, we need to put casters on tables so that they can move out of the way, and all that stuff. So I'm proud with where the place is now. And I have fun doing metal nights there, and I've been booking acoustic shows and running those shows, and keeping my involvement in the music programming there too, just so that I can kind of stay true to myself there.
Still getting complaints from that the one place you hated that you that you blocked it off.
Yeah.
Gonna report you to the Better Business Bureau.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was thinking about. I went back to Ann Arbor recently, and I passed this business that I fucking hated. And I know I told the story the last time, and I was like, I still walk by. I'm like, fuck you, bivouac, you fucking dicks. And it's like, I still hold on to the grudge of the dude coming in and being a piece of shit to one of my employees while I was there over a parking space.
Yeah.
But it's still a thing where it's like, I wondered, I was like, oh, maybe that guy left, or it's not a thing anymore because you've been there and established yourself now. But part of me still hopes that you're like still kind of bickering a little bit.
A little bit.
Last question for you. I've been kind of asking this because we are doing this kind of at the end of the year, and a new year is about to approach. And honestly, I know that when I put this out for the week of 500, that there's going to be a lot of reflection past and moving forward and all that. So what is something that you are really proud of for 2024, and what are you looking forward to for 2025?
I mean, we've touched on a lot of it, but I guess the the thing that I'm most proud of from 2024 is my I guess my decision to focus on myself and shine a light on the struggles of this industry that I've been a part of, the music industry and the service industry, for the past better part of my life here, the 16 to years music, and about 6 or 7 years service industry. And I'm really proud of the decisions that I've made to better myself, and the light that I've been shining on making it okay. And the people that I talk to, I've talked to some people in the music industry that are going through, the same thing, questioning their role, questioning their involvement with a certain group, or questioning their sobriety, or questioning their not sobriety. Like, I've been hearing a lot of the same things that were going through my head. And I think that when I took a step back and announced to the world that I had some issues, health wise, physically, mentally, that I needed to focus on and fix before I kept doing what I was doing. Um, I feel like it might have given other people in my scenario or in my situation permission to feel the same way. And I am very, very proud of not only the impact that I've made on my own life with my own decision, and the steps that I've taken to further my physical and mental health, but I am proud of the times that I have been there for other people, whether it's in the music or the service industry, that have come to me for guidance, for just like, hey, I'm struggling. How did you get through this? What have you been doing? Tell me about what you've been up to, because I'm feeling the same way. And very, very proud of being able to do that, and to help people not feel so alone, because I'm I'm not feeling as alone as I did, knowing that there's people coming out to talk to me about this kind of stuff. It definitely makes the decision feel even more worth it than just having these like physical and mental like progress. Seeing like my mental health get better and seeing my physical health get better is good, but then uh you know seeing you have the opportunity to help other people feels just as good. And 2025, I'm looking forward to just staying true to all of that, staying true to myself, continuing on this journey of sobriety and exercise and health, and bettering my instrument, bettering my craft, learning more about, you know, what it takes to be a musician in this day and age, learning more about the gear, learning more about the equipment, learning more about, the algorithm, unfortunately. And, I'm really looking forward to collaborating. I'm looking forward to putting out just as much material, as much content, as much music as possible. And, hopefully, spreading this, you know, spreading this positivity to my audience, I guess.
I've only done one of the other ones of these so far, but I think something I want to do to wrap these up is to kind of, as sort of we've talked about already today or during this chat a couple of times, is kind of um, taking the time to understand what's important to you, and also taking the time to say those things to people. I think a lot of times we assume, I'll see you next time, I'll say it another time. You have time. And I think I learned sitting in my bed or sitting on a couch, when that was all I could really do was just sit or lay down, made me realize, like, when you have a lot of time, all you want to do is anything but just fucking be. And so that was kind of, I think, the learning thing I had to do ahead of turning 40 this year, was to learn how to be comfortable with myself, with my thoughts late at night, literally and figuratively, with just being okay with me.
Yeah.
And that was a real interesting experience. One that I don't think I don't know if I would ever want to do it again. I don't know if I would want to wish that on somebody. Because sometimes, like, those late nights by yourself when it's 3-4 o'clock in the morning and literally no one, regardless of where they are in the world, like, no one's going to text you because everyone's sleeping.
Yeah. And you're not distracting yourself. You're not drinking. You're not you're not taking, your mind off of things in that way using like a vice or something like that.
Nope. Nope, because I was so afraid with all the meds and shit I was on. Like I was like, I can't smoke, I can't
Yeah.
drink, can't do anything. And it was just like a thing where it's like, okay, this fucking is awful, and my sleep schedule is horrible. If you can even call it one. But it's a thing where when I kind of knew that I wanted to do this, instead of going for a super big guest that it's like, oh, here's, I don't know, Dave Mustaine or some bullshit, or it's like, here's a big 500th. It's like, I kind of, like I said, realized what was important to me, and I wanted to have it be with people that I can talk about life things with, that I think when I have these people on, there's truths that we speak about our lives that I think are universal to a lot of people, and maybe that they're not as comfortable having these conversations. Typically, I think all of these are going to be with men. So I think that's also another important process, is having men talk about mental health and a lot of these other things, and becoming better people.
Yeah.
So I would like to take the time to say thank you for your friendship over this whole time. I know at times I probably came across as punishy at certain points, but it's a thing where, in light of what I assumed to be probably what you were going through, I really wanted to reach out at multiple times, but I figured if you weren't posting anything about it, then obviously you're still going through it and figuring out how does it look for you. So I figured the best thing to do was to give you space and time. And then we would eventually probably either personally or doing this, we would discuss it. But I'm proud of you as a person. I'm proud of you professionally for still doing and finding other ways to do this thing, because I feel like you said, a lot of people are probably treating this as like you're done.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's not a you're done. This is, I'm taking a break now and you're going to see more of me. And you know that whatever I'm doing is really where I'm meant to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. So I take inspiration from that, seeing you go through these things. So I want to thank you just for being you and for your friendship and coming on and being a part of my 500th fucking thing of talking to people or talking at people.
Well, thank you, John. I really do appreciate that. And I do appreciate your respect of my, my privacy through the past, few months when I was kind of, going through this transition and this change in my life. You're right. I was kind of staying off of social media and more or less just, going through this at my own pace in my own privacy. And I appreciate you thinking about me, but I also appreciate your respect for my privacy when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I'm glad that we were able to get on here, and I'm glad that like my first like interview, my first talk, my first chat, my first podcast, like this year, with all that's gone on with this new, version of me, has been with you on this podcast, because with you, this podcast was the first one, that I did with in Ice Nine. So like the beginning of, that kind of rise in whatever career, you were, like I said before, like at the beginning of that. So it only felt right that my first interview, since parting ways with Ice Nine and since being sober, like was with you on this podcast. So I genuinely thank you for thinking of me, and I'm so glad that we got to do this.
Sadly, this won't be probably out for a little bit because I am a neurotic person when it comes to work, and I know how much work is going to be involved in putting all of this out every single day for a week.
For
so
sure.
This probably won't come out until at least next year, but the sentiment still remains and all that. But thank you so much. And enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, you too, dude.
Right.
So that was my conversation with Pat. I want to thank him once again for taking the time, as always, for coming on the show and really just going fucking deep with me. I know I say that all the time. And sometimes I feel like it's old hat that, like, I make this thing of like, people being vulnerable and kind of going deep, but sometimes people aren't, and sometimes people don't, and some people just don't exist in that lane. And I've learned several times trying to do this, and even in my own personal life, sometimes you try to ask a question because it's something I'm literally thinking of when I hear someone say something in a conversation I'm having, and a lot of people tend to kind of shut down when you get real and ask real kind of personal questions, even with longtime friends that I see all the time, and they know that I'm not coming from some shitty place or anything like that, or trying to pride or be, whatever the perception could be internally when someone kind of asks you these kind of things. So I'm always appreciative of anybody that is willing to kind of to go down that rabbit hole with me. And man, there was so much good stuff in here to me of just wanting and learning to be a better person and figuring it out, however long it may take. But I think Pat is someone that obviously, I mean, just the ability to get to this thing that you had worked I mean, it is the pinnacle of being a touring musician, is like, I want to play the biggest shows possible. I want to be on the road more than I'm at home, and just doing something of purpose and value and all those sort of intrinsic things that we get wrapped up in, and realizing that you have to prioritize your health. And honestly, if you don't, it makes everything not fucking worth it. Because you're not able to do it to your fullest capability. And that would be sort of, A, it'd be diminished returns, but I think B, anybody who is doing something at that level, I think knows that it's something's not right, and like they need to step away. And I think that takes just massive balls normally, given who I'm talking to, but I'll say I think it takes just a massive level of respect to see someone understand that and choose to know that they have to walk away from something that they love so much. And it's got to be just a hard decision to make, and it's not one obviously that was made in haste or in light of anything. So I mean, I hold Pat in such a high regard for that, and I think it showcases who I've known him to be since I've known him, and why I'm always inspired by the things that he does and the integrity of which he does things. All that said, this was another long one. We got a couple more coming, so let's start wrapping up this episode. If you would like to keep up with Pat, you can find him basically at patrickgalante.com. That is the landing page for everything that is going on with him. It'll take you to all of his socials, his Cameo, all of that stuff. So you know what? I'm going to make this one real easy. Just patrickgalante.com. Do that. That'll be where you can find him and keep up with everything that's going on with him. Otherwise, everything else is going to be in the show notes, listed individually between all the socials. If you would like to keep up with me, you can keep up with us at BrewSpeakPod on all your major social media platforms. Email me at brutallyspeaking@gmail.com. And if you would like to rate, review, subscribe, whatever you can do on whatever you are listening to this on is greatly appreciated. I have been just blown away by the comments, the shares of things, and all that kind of stuff in the last few months. It has kind of gone into another level, and it is just really fucking wild to be this far into it and still seeing new growth and new people coming in. It's not what makes me keep doing this, but it is something that motivates me to be like, okay, like it's growing, it's doing something, and it's reaching people that it needs to reach, and that just feels really great. So I'm super appreciative and thankful of everyone who has been doing all of those things. Hopefully you continue to do such, and you continue to stay along this journey for hopefully the next 500 episodes. I also couldn't do this without the support and sponsorship of Rockabilia. Go to rockabilia.com, use our code BREWtally at checkout, take 10% off your total purchase order. Huge thanks to everyone over there. You've heard me say several times over the years why I love the support of these people, but more importantly, the friendship that I have gained through the sponsorship. It is more than just a sponsorship, it is a friendship, and I believe in what they do, and they have amazing products, and they are just great people that work over there. So please go support them if you are able to. Again, use our code BREWtally at checkout, take 10% off your total purchase order. And for the Brutally Speaking podcast, I am John, and I will see you all tomorrow, where I have my buddy Dale joining me. I know that is not a name that you probably know, but he has a fascinating story. He is one of our most viral security sensations here in Grand Rapids at our local venues. And just honestly, a very wonderful human being. I'm very excited to introduce you to my good friend Dale. I'll see you all tomorrow.